Hello, everyone. This is Rob Golfi with REMAX, the Golfi Team. Welcome to the Golfi Real Estate Show, Hamilton Edition, with host Rick Zamperin.
Good morning once again. Another awesome day in the city of Hamilton, and we're going to have a great time over the next hour talking about real estate and housing and everything under the sun in this phenomenal sector, because there's a lot to learn and a lot to react to with some of the really intriguing stories that are making news these days. Of course, if you want to get your house sold in the Hamilton, Burlington, Niagara, Brantford area, you got to call the Golfi Team, the #1 REMAX team in Canada at 905-575-7700. The website is robgolfi.com, robgolfi.com, and they are dominating the social media game on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You guys are on Threads now, which is amazing to see. I'm not sure we need that one at this point, but it's another avenue for you to connect with people in the community. So it's great to see that you're on there as well. We got lots to talk about today. We'll talk about Ontario cottage country and how prices have crashed. We're going to talk about the new mayor of Toronto who wants to see a big change in how property assessments are done in this province. There's a really interesting story out of the Netherlands in terms of aiming to ban the rich or wealthy individuals from buying homes in a certain price point. We'll also talk about multiple offers in BC and how their system is going to be changing. Strangers coming together to buy some homes in the ultra-expensive Vancouver area. But as we always do, we'll start with what is going on in your real estate life this week, Rob.
Well, I'm just going to briefly talk about what's been happening. I got some of the numbers in the first 10 days of what's happening in real estate in the area. Now, unit sales are down so far versus the first 10 days of last month versus this month. And I've kind of expected that because we are finding that the market is kind of softening up quite a bit in unit sales, and things are changing out there. And it's hard to gauge. We'll get the final numbers once the month is over. But I do feel that the summer months, and I even told my team this, that it's going to be a flat summer, and you're going to have to hustle even harder to get the sales going, just because people this summer, the only ones that are moving are the ones that have to move, and people that want to move, they're just going to probably stay put. If they're people that are looking to change the house because of lifestyle or whatever, and people will wait around and see what the market's going to do. But I do feel the summer market is going to just flatline right up until September, and that's what's going to happen in my opinion this summer.
What percentage of those who have to move are in the boat of they have to move because their mortgage is up for renewal and they can't afford the payment? Are we seeing a lot of that, some of that, a little bit of that?
We're starting to see a lot of calls coming in, people questioning how's the market, what's going on. And there is a lot of people, the renewals are coming up right now, but the bulk of the renewals are going to be next year. And there's some people are thinking they want to downsize. A lot of people, like mortgages, I mean, it's increasing quite a bit. Like it is going to affect people lifestyle, and it's going to be tough, and that's what's going to cause the summer market to be kind of quiet in a certain way. So people are going to see if they can afford their house, and they're going to continue on, and until they get choked, and that's when they, maybe it might be too late, and they got to do a fire sale, and that's what happens. So you got to really plan you got to plan ahead right now. You got to be very, no more Starbucks coffee. Go to Tim Hortons instead because it's a lot cheaper. You can't buy no restaurant lunches every single day or dinners. You have to really take care of and watch what you're going to do. With these interest rates that are the way they are, with the renewals coming in, and even my son Daniel, his mortgage is going up quite a bit, and I mean he's planned, he's prepared for it, he's good, he's going to stay where he is, and he's going to go forward, but yeah, like it's going to dip into a lot of people's income, and people aren't going to spend money.
Yeah, that is a sad reality going forward for many who are up for renewal. That is for sure. We're going to talk about how rising interest rates are going to impact the markets a little later on in the show. But you also have a story about an elderly man. What's going on with him?
Yeah, so I received a call from this elderly man, and this just tells me the impact of the inflation that's happening in the world, or even in Ontario. So I get a call, and he calls me, and he's got a nice property, and this one was in Niagara on the lake, and he's got a nice lot, and he called me and said, "Listen, I need to talk to you," and he didn't want to give too much information, so I met with him, and he said, and he said, "Hey, take a look at the property." And it's just a nice lot. It's about 80 feet wide by 100, I think 60 feet deep. Beautiful lot. And he was hoping that he could sell the property and live there for free, and he'll pay the utilities and everything, and live there for free from and this was, and I says, you know what? I go, I think if you had 30 acres and it was going to be, it's within the boundary of development, I think that could happen. But they only give you a couple years free to do that, and I've done this. And I said, you're just one building lot. I says it's not going to happen. And I said, do you ever think about reverse mortgage? He goes, no, I don't want no debt. And I says, well, because you could tell it's tight for him to live there. The house is paid for. Yeah. It's tight for him to live there. The property's worth about $750,000 to $800,000. And and he's on a pension, and that's it, and he doesn't want to leave there, and he's trying to find different avenues where he can stay, and I get it. But I said, and because he was telling me about somebody else that they did this, and I said, yeah, but the conservation bought the lady's house, or developers bought. I remember I sold 5 acres to one developer, and they let the guy lived there for 2 years. They didn't care. Just, hey, you pay the utilities, you pay all that, we'll take care of it. But in 2 years, you're out. Because we're crushing the house down. It's going. And so those things do happen. And he thought his property was worthy of him living there, that a developer would buy as an investment. It's just, I said, maybe if you had 10 acres that was development land, yeah, but not that way. And I feel bad for the guy because of the cost of living that's happening out there. Some seniors just can't afford to carry their house anymore, and they're kind of getting pushed out of their home. And where are they going to go next? I mean, they've got money once they sell the house, but they don't have where they're living anymore. So, and it's tough. It's a tough situation, and I feel bad for the guy. And I just said, the only way you can do it is if you partner up with somebody, or somebody buys it, you still live there, and and work some kind of deal out with somebody, but it's hard to gauge. It's hard to gauge.
Yeah, the one thing that comes to mind for me is, this senior citizen who obviously, the budget is extremely tight, but if he were to sell the home to a developer and still live there, but pay rent to live there as opposed to living there for free and just paying the utilities, that might work. At least the investor can say, all right, we can get a roommate or two, and then, really make some good coin. But yeah, living there for free would not be mathematically sound for any investor.
No, it wouldn't be. And I worked out a solution saying, hey, what if you paid rent but he can't afford to even pay rent. So there's no way that it'll work. There's no way. He will have to probably eventually sell the house and move into something smaller, or a condo, or something that is not as expensive. He's got his taxes, his utilities, and believe me, this guy, he is not living this guy. If you're walking around his house at nighttime, it's dark. It's like you're bumping into things in his house, I'll tell you, because this guy does not have any light switches on at all. He is watching every penny that he's spending. He's watching everything. Wow. So I feel sorry for the guy, and he's definitely have to figure something, a different solution,
Yeah. Well, to that end, it's not going to get any easier for many homeowners, especially those with variable rate mortgages. You mentioned your son Daniel and how he's up for renewal and things are going to be okay. But there's a lot of Canadians who are going to be struggling because when they were with a mortgage of 2% or less, and now it's going to be 5.5, 6.5, whatever the case is. It's going to be tough sledding. The average borrower with a $500,000 mortgage can expect an increase of $1,000 to $1,150 in their monthly payments. So just think about adding an extra grand to what is already going out of your bank account. And a lot of people saying that, the interest rate hike is going to have a dampening effect on home prices. To that point, do you see that happening?
Absolutely. I feel that is coming definitely next year, and it's starting to happen now, and I think that's why the market is softening up this summer. Like right now, we're in the middle of summer pretty well, and it is softening up, and I'm noticing it. And the one thing I've found that, and I think it's gonna change a lot of the other different dynamics coming down the pipeline, Rick. I was just talking to a friend of mine. He's got a fairly large company, and like manufacturing and assembling company, and they just laid off 50% of their workforce. Now that is scary. Now, and I know we're coming up to a break, but I'll elaborate on that just after the break.
I want to get into Hamilton's rental rate scenario. We've seen that the average one-bedroom apartment in this city is now, on average, $1,870 a month. That's up about $260 from last year. Two bedrooms going for just shy of $2,300 a month, up $277 from this time last year. What is that doing to the whole housing market in general? What kind of pressure are you seeing?
A lot of pressure on tenants. They're afraid to move, and they don't want to move, even if they get relocated. Let's say their job is, let's say they live in Hamilton, and their job's in Niagara Falls. They may be able to find something cheaper there, no problem. But even in the city, the biggest problem that renters are finding right now is that when, let's say, a landlord owns a single family home, and he says, okay, I'm going to sell my house. Well, guess what? That renter now will probably have to vacate and move, and has to find something similar because that's what they're used to. But something similar is going to be almost 20 to 30% more, and they can't afford it. And that's what's happening. So a lot, and that's what's causing so much problems with housing in not only just in Hamilton but everywhere, that it's just getting expensive. And people don't like my tenants. Some of them are asking, will you sign another 2-year agreement, like a lease agreement? I say, yeah, no problem. And just because they don't want to have to uproot and leave. And if you're a tenant, go to your landlord, get a lease signed so that you're locked in there, because once you sign the original lease for 1 year, and then that year's up, you're on a month-to-month basis. So get an updated lease every year, or get a 2-year lease so that you're locked in. But for the landlord, then he's kind of locked in. He's committed to you. Like like nobody's going to buy a single-family home with a tenant in there, and it's that much difficult to sell that. So you have, the tenant doesn't have anything to worry, but the landlord, it's going to have a tough time. So he's got to know if he's going to keep it or he's going to sell it. So it's becoming difficult. Everything's becoming more expensive. There's a shortage of homes out there. More people are moving into this country, and it's just going to continue, Rick. Like, we're so backlogged. It's going to take 10, 20 years to catch up.
Wow. Can you do a longer than 2-year lease agreement?
You can, and you can put down increases of what the rent can be each year after that, and that's not a problem. It just depends on the tenant and landlord, what do they agree upon, and which I think is good for more. I think it's more good for the tenant than the landlord, because the landlord has no problem filling that unit up. Like, he has no problem, but to secure, if you're a tenant, I would do that. I would get that, have the landlord get that lease done so that you're there. I have one couple, they moved in, I don't know how many years ago, and they asked me, are you ever going to sell this place? I said, listen, and they were really upset because they had to move and they wanted to stay in the same neighborhood and they have the one child. I said, listen, I usually keep everything I own. And so as far as you're concerned, I will make sure that your child will be able to grow up in this neighborhood. So not a problem. So they've been there, I think, pretty close to 5 years now. So, and they're happy about that. They're happy, and they take care of the house really well. So I've probably been in that house maybe twice in 5 years, and every time I've been in there, it's been great. And they tell me everything that they're doing. But again, they're great tenants. And I'm fulfilling my word. My word, I told them my word is that I would not sell it as long as they're living there.
Yeah, and that's a win-win because it's a great scenario for you. You have a tenant that you can count on that is doing great things in the house, and they obviously want to be in that neighborhood. So this is the best of both worlds.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's great. It works well.
Just some final thoughts on the interest rate hikes. I know you had a point to make just before the commercial break. We saw a quarter-point increase midweek. It's now 5% for the central bank. Obviously, interest rates, mortgage rates going up. Your final thoughts on the impacts that we're seeing?
I think, you know what, it's going to be it's tough. I mean, people don't like it, especially the people that have mortgages that have to renew. Those are the ones that are going to be hurt the most. The new buyers in the market, they've adapted to that. They're getting a pre-approved to that level. So they're not going to be hurt as bad. I mean, they're hoping that it'll eventually come down, maybe a point and a half eventually down the road. But it is going to have an effect. And now what the other thing that's happening is this is going to cause a recession. And what happens is now if a household has to spend $500 to $1,000 more on their mortgage, that means that's $500 to $1,000 less in the economy that's going towards consumer goods. Now, just like I was saying, a company that I know, they laid off 50% of their workforce just because of that. And they supplied, I'll tell you, they were a big supplier of Amazon like for trucking. So and other companies are holding back also. So now if companies aren't shipping as much, that means product is not moving. So product is not moving, that means it's not selling. So there's a trickle-down effect that's going to happen right down the line, and we're going to feel it either next year in the spring or this fall. It's hard to tell, but I know guaranteed we're going to feel it next spring. And so it's just it's just a readjustment, and it's going to be a readjustment in the economy. It's going to be a readjustment and possibly in the housing. It's hard to gauge how it's going to go. I know in the past 60, 70 years, housing prices during recessions, they still hold, they hold. They don't move up that much. They just stand still for maybe a year, 2 years, and then they start climbing again. But it's hard to gauge where it's going to go. But I do feel that the middle class family is going to get hurt the hardest in the upcoming year.
Flows in nicely to our next topic, and that is co-ownership. We've talked about this for a few years now, co-owning a home, but it's usually between friends or really good acquaintances where they come together, they pool their resources, and they live in the same house. They co-own said house. In this case, a really interesting story out of Vancouver where two families, complete strangers, are co-owning a home. And basically, they utilized a new company called Coho BC. It's a collaborative home ownership, which is basically pairing couples or individuals together to get in on a home. So there was a family of four that moved into this particular house, I think it was a couple of years ago, with another family. And they had not even met the family before, jumping into this, website scenario. And then when they did meet the other family, they thought, wow, we really like these individuals. We have the same kind of thought process. We think we can get along well with them. And so they go in on this house. One family lives on the main floor. The other owns the second floor and the attic. And, with the average price of a home in Metro Vancouver currently around $1.2 million, it sounds like a great scenario. I'm envisioning co-ownership being maybe the next big thing if it isn't already.
I would do it if I was young and I was married and I had one or two, young kids. And if I couldn't afford it, it's your way of getting into the housing market. It's the only way there, unless you got help from parents. And if you don't have that, then you're going to have to find a way to be homeowners of a property. Now, these two families that are moving into this house together, if they stay there for 5 years, so it's 5 years out of your lifetime that you are going to cohabitate one house, which a lot of people do anyway. They live in a duplex or whatever, but it's just that you're owners. Now, in 5 years, they'll build up enough equity that they can go separately after and sell the property and buy their own house on their own. And yes, there could be problems. There's no doubt. You're with a stranger, so it's a good way to maybe go out a few times and for dinner and learn each other's things, check each other's houses out. Say, hey, look, you live pretty tidy and clean. That's great. They both do that, and you kind of get an idea what they do for a living. The parking situation, how many cars, and all that kind of stuff. I think it's a great way to get into home ownership. If I was young, I would do it. You'll probably start seeing that happening everywhere in Ontario, like Toronto and maybe in Hamilton, Burlington, everywhere. Yeah, like it's the only way to do it. There's no other way. There's to afford a home.
And well, the way I envision it is, and earlier on we were just talking about interest rates and how they're impacting mortgage rates, obviously. And if your mortgage rate is going up by $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 a month, you might be thinking, wow, yeah, we can't afford that. What if we brought in another co-owner for the house? Obviously, you can rent the basement and whatnot, but you might get a bigger bang for your buck if you go the co-ownership route, as opposed to selling the house because you have to. At least you retain part of it, continue to build that equity. I can see this really taking up.
Oh, absolutely. It's less of a down payment on your part. You're splitting the down payment. If you own a house and you need some cash, bring in a partner and say, hey, listen, I need X amount of dollars. You pay the half the equity out of the house from the current owner, and the new owner, the other owner that comes in and joins you, gives you, and that helps him with not putting as a big down payment, and you live there for a while, and you just continue on. You know what I mean? I'll tell you, immigrants, that's how they do it. They all live together, but it's more family. And a lot of times it's friends from a different country, you know what I mean? Whatever country you're from. Hey, I know Dave and I know Steve. Hey, why don't you come on? Let's live over here. I know you guys from the same town as me. I'll bring you guys in. They stay there for a while, and they help pay for the house and everything else. So yeah, it's going to be more and more popular coming up soon.
Thank you. Also in BC, this is interesting. This all starts on July the 17th. And what the province is doing is going to be implementing a disclosure form that must be completed in cases when there are multiple offers for a property. So the disclosure of multiple offers presented form is going to list the offers that a seller received and the brokerage of record that submitted them. What it won't include is the amount offered or any conditions that come with it. So the selling realtor and the homeowner are going to be required to sign this form and then share it with everyone who submitted an offer no later than 1 calendar day after the seller accepts an offer. And in a statement announcing this whole thing, the real estate board said it seeks to balance buyers' rights to transparency and disclosure with sellers' rights to privacy. Your thoughts on this new disclosure of multiple offers presented form? Do you see any hiccups with it?
No hiccups. I love it, and I'm glad they're bringing that in because it keeps everybody straight. A lot of times you don't know who the other agents are bringing offers in. So now let's say that there's a house for sale and there's 5 offers on it. And then you find out, hey, wait a minute, why did this offer get accepted? You see the numbers after. Now you have the list of agents that brought those offers in. You as the buyer that didn't get it say, hey, what did you come in at? You can discuss it after it's done, after it's firm, and you can figure out why that seller took that offer, or find out, hey, it's total transparency. I love it. Everything's above board. And I'm glad, and I hope they bring it to Ontario, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty good system. Earlier this week on Good Morning Hamilton, you joined me to talk about a really intriguing story out of the Netherlands, which didn't fly, but the proposal was very interesting, so much so that we talked about it on the show. And that is, in the Netherlands, there was, I think it was the Minister of Housing who brought in an idea to basically force people who are wealthy citizens to not invest or not buy houses that are priced for low and middle income earners. They're, i.e., if you're at a certain wealth point, you could not buy a house, say that was worth, $500,000 Canadian. And we had a good discussion of this on Monday. Your thoughts just before we go to break on clearly why this didn't fly.
Because the middle number, let's say that if you bought, let's say they put the benchmark price for $500,000, so wealthy people can't buy any house 500 or under. Well, guess what? I would be the consumer and list my house at 505,000. I want that wealthy person to buy my house, and but yeah. You know what I mean? Like that, you're going to drive that middle number up high. You're going to drive that that marketplace of homes up high, and it'll just it's not a good thing. That's why it got shut down fast. It's terrible, but hey,
I do have another question. I do have another question I'm going to ask you about this on the other side of the break, because I'm intrigued to hear your answer. And I don't think we talked about it on Monday, so we'll get Rob's fresh take on this new slice of this piece of pie out of the Netherlands. That is next on the Golfi Real Estate Show, Hamilton edition on 900 CHML. Before the break, we were talking about this idea in the Netherlands, which did not fly, and basically it would prevent wealthy residents from buying a home that was intended or at least priced for low to middle income earners. Anything $500,000 Canadian or less would kind of be off limits for those wealthy individuals. The solution, in my mind, is to just build more homes, make the supply more available, and that ultimately will at least bring prices down or make them stabilized. Is that not the correct response or the way to go?
It is. Just build and build and build, and you'll see housing prices level off or stop growth. And they just didn't do that in the last 50 years, like since the 70s. They build more houses in the 70s than they do now. And our population just hit, 40 million people? And what was our population in the 70s? Like, it's just, it's not, I don't understand it, but they just got to build more apartment buildings. They got to build more housing. They got to just keep building and never stop. Just find incentives for developers to build faster than they can now, just so that they can catch up to the housing market. But yeah, absolutely.
It is a double-edged sword, because all these immigrants, 1.5 million over the next few years, are going to be coming here. They'll need a place to live. Are we going to build homes fast enough? Do we have the skilled labor force to do so? I mean, these things are all big question marks.
Oh, for sure. And, it's gonna be a disaster, because you're gonna see people living on top of people, and it's already started. That's why they got laneway homes. That's why they're allowing people converting their homes, basement apartments in there. The government's doing everything, and they're allowing all this to happen because they know they need it. So, and Vancouver was doing that like 30 years ago. Like, they were putting every Vancouveran in Vancouver has a basement apartment. Like, a friend of mine moved out there about, I think 30 years ago, and he had a basement apartment when they bought their first house out there, and the house that he lives in now has a basement apartment. So, like, that's how life is in Vancouver, and it's coming this way. It's in Ontario, we're seeing that now.
It is not one of the easy answers to, because, the government officials are saying all the right things. You got to build more homes. Doug Ford wants to build 1.5 million homes in the next 10 years. I mean, the messaging is great. The fact of the matter is that when it comes to the planning departments municipally, that's where things are slowing down, because not enough homes are being built. There's too much red tape. It takes months to get things done.
Oh, it does. And I know Doug Ford is trying to alleviate those red tape for developers and builders, but it's still taking too long. It's causing a lot of problems, and it's just going to get worse unless they do something. And but we'll see. And I'll tell you, 5 years from now, who knows? Like, I mean, what's going to happen? But it's going to be tough. We're going to be at a shortage for a long time. It's going to be a long time before we actually catch up to what we need to get to.
There is a new mayor in Toronto, Olivia Chow, officially enshrined as the mayor midweek this week, and she wants MPAC to get updated. The Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, she feels, and this is through a Toronto Star investigation as well, needs to have updated data and a re-evaluated formula after the Star found that the city's most affordable homes are being overtaxed while many mansions in Toronto are catching a break. You can check it out on thestar.com. It's a really interesting story in which MPAC assessed the most affordable homes at values higher than their sale price more often than it overassessed the most expensive homes, so much so that some of those homeowners getting tax breaks include a retired tennis professional, a Toronto sports team executive, and a former Toronto Blue Jays infielder who all own or owned homes that were assessed at significantly less than what they paid for them in 2016. So I'm going to ask Rob after the break what he thinks about this and whether or not MPAC needs an overhaul and what impact that could have. We're also going to get into cottage country and how prices there have absolutely plummeted by as much as 60%. Where do they go from there on in? We're also going to get into another common mistake that home sellers make when selling their home. That's all next here on the Golfi Real Estate Show, Hamilton Edition on 900 CHML. You can follow the Golfi team on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as well. Threads as well is also a new thing. You can check them out there. First things first, MPAC, Toronto's mayor, Olivia Chow, wants the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation to go through a bit of an overhaul. She wants better data, updated data, and a new formula to calculate how properties are assessed. How do you feel about this?
You know what? I understand. And I think some of these houses they're probably talking about are in neighborhoods that are mostly medium-priced houses. And, sometimes you'll see this, mansion built in a residential neighborhood where the average, let's say, square footage of a house is 2,300 square feet. Meanwhile, you got this 4,000 square foot home. And they kind of averaged out the tax or the whatever tax situation there, but they do assess it a lot by square footage. Now, I don't know, like let's say neighborhoods like the Bridle Path, where they're all big mansions, homes are worth 10, 20, $30 million. I think that whole neighborhood is assessed at a high rate already, or whatever number formula they go by. And I think that formula is the same right across the board, and it works in favor for the high-end homes versus the medium and lower priced homes. And that's where she's probably looking at and say, hey, why don't we get these people that can afford these expensive homes? Let's have them pay a little more money. I don't know if it's a way to go. It's hard to tell. I think, again, once the government gets involved and starts changing things, they mess up the economy a little bit, and it's hard to gauge. I mean, people do look at the taxes when they're buying a house. They say, you know what? I don't know. Like, I'm not going to touch this house. There was a house on the Hamilton Mountain, and it was years ago, and their taxes were so high, and whoever bought this house, it was the biggest house in the neighborhood. Their taxes were so high, and it needed updating, and nobody would touch it. 2 reasons. They had to put money into it, and plus the taxes were too much. If they start messing around with the taxes, they're going to get to a point where they're going to have a lot of empty houses out there that are just sitting and rotting away, and people aren't going to touch them. And, I just, like, the city's got a formula. Just stick to the formula and just go on. But I get it. They're trying to get, Toronto is always in debt. They've always they gotta pay a lot of things. Like they also want to increase the land transfer tax on houses that are $3 million or more. So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the land transfer tax is already double in Toronto. They doubled it. Now they want to increase it more. Like if you're buying a $3 million house, I don't know what the land transfer tax is. It could be like $30,000. They want to increase it more. Like you're almost going to have to pay $100,000 to the city just to buy a house. It's just going to get to a point where nobody's going to want to move. There's not going to be any exchange, and it's just going to drive everything down. And it's a tough situation. Again, those prices, $3 million houses, actually that'll be great because people are going to pay $2.99 million for the house, and who knows, so they don't have to pay that extra land transfer tax.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure we're going to have time for the Ontario cottage prices report, so maybe we'll save that for next year or next week. But I did want to get to the other common mistake that home sellers are making when selling their home, and that's not being ready to go.
I'm surprised how many people, we put their houses up for sale and, we get them to, clear everything and declutter and everything. And a lot of times the sellers, they just sometimes don't care. They just, they want top dollar, but they don't care. And they leave everything out. Beds unmade, dishes in the sink, just tables messed, just clutter everywhere. People, if you want to sell your house, and the main objective is to get you the most amount of money, why don't you tidy up, clean up, organize? You will get that. You just got to take care of your house and make it tidy and show ready to get sold.
It doesn't take much, right? Like just keep things in order.
Absolutely.
I know it might be tough if you have a few kids, maybe a dog and a cat, and things are getting crazy in the house sometimes. But yeah, always be ready to go.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Speaking of going, we got to go. You can listen to our show online through Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and many more. Just search for the Golfi Real Estate Show in your favorite podcast platform. Hit that follow button so you never miss an episode. And don't forget, if you want to sell your house or you are in the market to buy a home, call the #1 REMAX team in Canada, the Golfi Team, 905-575-7700, online at robgolfi.com. That's Rob, Golfi.com. Rob, fantastic program as always, and thank you out there for listening to the Golfi Real Estate Show.